Whether it was the fashion, the music, or just the vibe, the 70s left us with memories you can't help but smile about. Come take a trip down memory lane with me. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 things only those who grew up in the 70s remember. 25. Film strips in classrooms. If you went to school in the 70s, you probably remember that educational tool they called film strips. The teachers would dim the lights, load the projector, and let the beep take everyone through each still image. Now, for our younger friends, don't laugh. These mini slideshow lessons were the height of classroom technology back then. The topics covered everything from the anatomy of ants to hand washing techniques, all with a narrator who sounded way too enthusiastic about hygiene. It wasn't the most exciting thing, but it beat a boring lecture. And sometimes those beeps were the best part of the day. 24. Bell bottoms and platforms. The 70s brought us some of the boldest fashion trends this world has ever seen. And I have to say, none were more iconic than bell bottoms and platform shoes, or ankle busters as they were lovingly known. Platform shoes first appeared in the 1600s, made a brief comeback in the 1930s, and then truly hit their stride in the 70s. Designers like Fred Slayton and Terry de Havilland turned them into art of the wearable kind and made custom pairs for stars like David Bowie and Elton John. Marvin Gaye even wore rhinestone-covered platforms made by his wife Janice. But they weren't called ankle busters for nothing. 23. Saturday morning cartoons. Back in the 70s, Saturday mornings were sacred territory for kids everywhere across the country. They didn't have Netflix or on-demand episodes, so if you wanted your fix of Scooby-Doo, the Flintstones, or Super Friends, you had to set that alarm and stake your claim on the TV. With a bowl of sugary cereal in hand, kids would settle in for hours of animated adventures, heroes, and ridiculous comedy. The thrill of watching the latest episode made the effort of getting up early on a weekend almost worth it. 22. Gas shortages and long lines. In contrast to today, the 70s were plagued by gas shortages that tested everyone's patience. The Arab oil embargo of 1973 meant long lines at gas stations, and people often waited hours just to get a few gallons. To make things worse, you could only buy gas on odd-even days, determined by your license plate number, which only added to the frustration. For anyone who lived it, those lines weren't only inconvenient, they were unforgettable. 21. 8-track tapes. Before the world gave us Spotify playlists or even CDs, 8-track tapes were the ultimate way to take your music on the go. The chunky, colorful cartridges were portable, played albums on repeat, and were a must-have for every car and home stereo. Granted, the sound quality wasn't exactly flawless, and the loud click when the tape switched tracks was hard to ignore, but they were cutting edge back then. The format is long gone today, but collectors all over the world are still keeping its memory alive. 20. The Watergate Scandal. When you hear the words political scandal, Watergate is probably one of the first that comes to mind. I know what you're thinking, but let's not get into the 90s one. It all started with a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, spiraling into a cover-up so messy it forced President Richard Nixon to resign. For anyone who lived through it, the hearings were must-watch TV, and I Am Not a Crook became a punchline. If they had memes, it would have been a big one. Fun fact, that entire speech was done, the I Am Not a Crook speech, was done at the Contemporary Hotel, the Ballroom of the Americas at Disney World. So, U.S. history there if you ever make it to the Contemporary. Anyway, thanks to Watergate, gate has also become the go-to suffix for scandals everywhere. Whether it's Deflategate, Partygate, or Pizzagate, we won't be getting rid of it anytime soon. 19. The rise of punk rock. The 70s saw punk rock burst onto the scene like a middle finger to the status quo. Although they probably didn't realize it at the time, bands like the Ramones, Sex Pistols, and The Clash started a cultural revolution. Their sound was raw, loud, and fast, and their message was clear: rebellion and individuality over conformity. The genre also shaped fashion and gave us ripped clothes and safety pins, fueled DIY creativity, and inspired countless fans to start their own bands. It wasn't polished, it wasn't meant to be, and that's exactly why punk rock still lives on in our music and culture today. 18. Fondue Parties. Fondue was the party food of the 70s. Nothing brought people together like a pot of bubbling Gruyere or chocolate and a bunch of long forks. Bread, fruit, marshmallows, you name it, it got dunked. But after a while, fondue started feeling, well, a little cheesy. Fast forward a few decades and guess what? It's actually making a comeback. Trendy spots like New York's Artisanal and London's Tiroler Hut are turning fondue into a gourmet experience with lobster tempura and fancy brie dips. It's definitely more upscale now, but I for one am glad it's back. Never got a chance to go to the melting pot. Are they still around? Do you have one near you? Let me know in the comments below. The one near me here in Tampa closed years ago. I think. The one in Gainesville closed, that's for sure. 17. The introduction of video games. The 70s didn't just give us bell-bottoms and disco, it also brought us video games. Pong, with its simple dot and paddle setup, was probably the one game that actually changed the world. It might look laughably basic now, but back then, it was far out. Arcades started popping up everywhere, and if you were lucky, you might have splurged on an Atari 2600 to play at home. For the kids of the 70s, there was nothing like the excitement of picking up that joystick for the first time, and their games ignited a love for gaming that's still going strong today. 16. Earth Day and environmental awareness. April 22nd, 1970 was a big day for the planet. Gaylord Nelson, an activist with a passion for nature, organized the first ever Earth Day, and it was massive. 20 million people across the US showed up for rallies, cleanups, and teach-ins. It was the start of a movement that got people talking about pollution, conservation, and saving the Earth. The buzz from that day eventually led to big changes like the Clean Air Act and the Endangered Species Act. And while Earth Day has grown into a global event, its roots in the 70s remind us that protecting the planet starts with all of us. 15. Polaroid cameras. Polaroid was already a popular brand with peel-apart color prints in 1963, but in 1972, the company took it to the next level when they introduced non-peel-apart prints. Within 5 years, they owned 2/3 of the instant camera market, and Polaroid cameras were everywhere. Family gatherings, vacations, even just hanging out with friends. There was nothing that could beat snapping a photo and watching it magically appear in your hand. Sadly, by the late 70s, smaller, cheaper video and 35mm cameras started taking over, and digital photography eventually stole the spotlight. 14. The original Star Wars release. Oh my god, man, do I wish I was a kid in 1977, because that was the year Star Wars changed everything. George Lucas introduced the world to a galaxy far, far away, and audiences were completely blown away. The special effects, groundbreaking. The story, epic. And don't even get me started on that unforgettable score by John Williams. Kids lined up around the block to see it, probably more than once, and suddenly everyone had Star Wars action figures and posters. There was nothing quite like it, and its success paved the way for the multi-billion-dollar franchise we know today. 13. The slip and slide. If this list has you feeling nostalgic, chances are you had a slip and slide, or know someone who did. Kids would grab a running start, belly flop onto the plastic, and shoot across the lawn like a human rocket. Some even added dish soap for extra speed, because why not? But not every slide ended in laughs. Between 1973 and 1991, 7 adults and a teen suffered serious neck injuries or paralysis, and it ended up being pulled from shelves. It's made a few comebacks over the years, but nothing has compared to its slippery glory days in the 70s. 12. The Feathered Hairstyles. If today's list covers your youth, chances are you either had Farrah Fawcett's feathered waves, or you really wanted them. The hairstyle was everywhere, and pulling it off meant hours of battling with a blow dryer, round brush, and a half a can of hairspray. And men rocked the feathered look too. It was basically a unisex vibe. If feathery layers weren't your thing, you probably spotted a Dorothy Hamill cut, a pixie, or maybe even a bowl cut. Bonus points if you used Short and Sassy shampoo, because of course the name said it all. 11. The disco era. The disco era blended music, fashion, and culture into one totally unforgettable movement. It all started in New York's underground clubs, where DJs spun seamless tracks inspired by funk, soul, and R&B. By 1976, disco dominated the charts, and artists like Donna Summer, the Bee Gees, and Gloria Gaynor led the way. Then came Saturday Night Fever in 1977, and disco fever exploded. Clubs were packed, disco balls spun, and everyone showed up in bell-bottoms, platform shoes, and sequins. It was a golden era for anyone lucky enough to be a part of it. 10. Metal lunchboxes. 70s metal lunchboxes were the ultimate statement pieces. The right box could skyrocket your playground cred, while the wrong one could leave you dreading the hallways. Popular choices included TV favorites like Star Wars, The $6 Million Man, and The Incredible Hulk. Music-themed lunchboxes like the Bee Gees were also a hit, as long as Maurice Gibb wasn't front and center. Girls usually went for Disney or psychedelic designs with bright, flowing colors, while boys stuck to Saturday morning cartoon heroes. And bringing an outdated hand-me-down lunchbox? Not an option. You would have been teased for the entire year. 9. Lava lamps. Who didn't want a lava lamp growing up? These groovy decorations were the perfect complement to shag carpets and beanbag chairs, and instantly turned any space into a psychedelic retreat. And if you've been wondering how they get those blobs to dance, well, the answer is science. A bulb at the base heats the glass bottle, melting the wax inside so it floats and sinks through the colored liquid. The effect depends on temperature, so sometimes you had to wait for the lamp to warm up, but it was totally worth it. I had one, even in the 90s. It was Buccaneers colors, because of course it was. 8. CB radios. If you know what a CB radio is, chances are you've said 10-4 good buddy at least once in your life. In the 70s, CB radios were everywhere thanks to movies like Smokey and the Bandit and Convoy, which made the trucker lifestyle look undeniably cool. Families used them on road trips, kids played pretend truck drivers, and sometimes, if you were lucky, Mel Blanc, yes, the voice of Bugs Bunny, would join in cracking jokes as his favorite characters. Even the First Lady Betty Ford joined the fun in 1976. Today, CB radios can still be found here and there, keeping the fun alive. Breaker Breaker 19. We got a great big convoy. 7. Pillow-topped seats in cars. The days of pillow-top seats may be long gone, but the world hasn't forgotten. And actually, I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean, we might be missing out. These ultra-plush button-tufted wonders turned cars into rolling living rooms. Some models, like the Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz, even came with actual pillows layered over thick padding. So I'm thinking road trips felt more like lounging on your couch. Today's bucket seats may all be about sleekness and support, but back then, comfort was king. And let's be honest, they look pretty comfortable. 6. Cut pile carpeting. Since I'm on the subject of over-the-top car interiors, let's talk about carpeting. In the 70s, car designers didn't stop at pillow-topped seats. A lot of cars came with thick plush carpeting that looked like it came straight out of a designer's living room. Or a sketchy motel. Both works. These shaggy floors were perfect for kicking off your shoes and getting extra cozy on long drives. That is, if you could handle the colors. Burnt orange, avocado green, and mustard yellow. 5. 1978's Superman. Today, superhero movies are a genre of their own. But before that, people had the 1978 classic, Superman. Christopher Reeve's portrayal of the Man of Steel set the standard, and for many, it's still the definitive Superman movie. The special effects were groundbreaking at the time, and John Williams' iconic score still gives us chills. The sequels obviously left a lot to be desired. Superman 2, anyone? But for kids of the 70s, this was the superhero movie. It made kids believe a man could fly, and it's a firm favorite of movie lovers to this day. 4. Spirographs. If you don't know what a spirograph is, just ask your mom. The classic 70s toy was invented by British engineer Dennis Fisher, and its magic lay in its simplicity. You'd place a small gear inside a larger one, pop in a pen, and spin your way to intricate, mesmerizing designs. But Dennis was quite sneaky. It wasn't just a craft toy, it was also a math lesson in disguise that taught kids about curves and motion without them even realizing it. You can still find vintage spirographs on Etsy or eBay today. And yes, they're still as mesmerizing as you remember. 3. Vinyl records. If your listening habits define the era, the 70s were defined by vinyl. There was something almost sacred about it. Flipping through a collection, pulling out an album, and gently lowering the needle onto the groove. The sound was warm, rich, and alive, complete with those little crackles that give every record its own personality. Fleetwood Mac, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. During the 70s, vinyl sales went up to 530 million records a year. And while it almost disappeared by the 90s, it's back, thanks to a new generation craving the kind of magic only vinyl can deliver. This one is actually from 1977. This is What do we got here? All the photos. This is gonna be a oh my god, this is gonna be like a poster from 1977. Hold on. I haven't opened this, and the reason is, oh my god, I've been looking for a record player and never got one, so I've been keeping this in storage. That's incredible. Oh, it came with a poster. That's so cool. Where's the actual? What do you got? Side A and B. Well, yeah, there's 2 records in here actually. Yeah. 20th Century Fox, Star Wars. Oh, what do we got? The Last Battle, Throne Room and End title. Main title, Imperial Attack, Princess Leia's theme, Desert, and the Desert and the Robot Auction. You could probably cut some of this. But this is just... Oh my god. Get in there. And this is going to be... Well, 20th century record. Oh my god, look at that font. What do we got here? What's on this side? Ben's death, spoilers. And TIE Fighter attack. The Little People work. The rescue of the Princess Inner City Cantina Band. And, oh, fine. The Land of the Sand People, Mouse, Robot, and blasting off. The Return Home, The Walls Converge, and Princess Appears. 1977. So this is not a reprint. This is legit. Awesome. 2. Macramé Decor. Disco may be long gone, but another hallmark of the 70s is having its moment again. Macramé. The nodding art dates all the way back to 13th century Arabia, but macrame truly became a household name in the 70s, popping up everywhere from plant hangers and wall tapestries to purses and even bikinis. The trend eventually faded with the decade, but today woven plant holders and wall art are all the rage on Etsy and Instagram, though modern versions lean toward neutral tones and natural accents like driftwood and crystals. 1. The fist poster. In the 70s, the clenched fist, or the raised fist, could be seen everywhere and on everything. Although it's usually associated with the Black Power movement, it wasn't just limited to one cause. The symbol evolved to represent various movements. Posters from the era came with fists in different designs. Black for Black Power, rainbow colors for peace and love, and even red, white, and blue for patriotic protests. No matter the color, the message was the same. Strength through solidarity, and a shared defiance against societal issues like racism, segregation, and war. And, well, that's all I have for you today. But before you go, here's a fun trivia question for you. What year did the original Star Wars hit theaters? Was it A, 1975, B, 1977, C, 1980, or D, 1983? Drop your answers in the comments below. And if I've got you all nostalgic after this list, why don't you check out a related video called 25 Most Iconic Toys of the 70s. From timeless classics to revolutionary inventions, in that video, we celebrated the toys that gave you countless childhood memories. Trust me, you'll love it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content, and I'll catch you next time. I wasn't alive in the 70s. Groovy. That's more Earthworm Jim, but whatever. I can't think of... Bye in 70s. I don't know what they said. I'm sorry.